Thank you very much for your kind introduction. Yes, this has been super inspiring, but also a little bit intimidating for me, just being a lawyer. And let me follow with another explanation. You invited Clarence Peter as well here, and you only see me. We did this presentation together, but we then decided that it's probably okay for you that we only read it to you once. I hope that's fine for you. You're left with my interpretation of the version, and it would be maybe interesting to see the difference and have Clarence do it and see where the delta is next time. So that's me here. Let me start with some general remarks on lawyers' traditions internationally in touch with, I would say, sustainability. Okay, sorry. So we have all these abbreviations that we were discussing in one or the other order, and some are broader, some are tinier, and we got used to that. Our clients got used to that, but the lawyers, not so sure. The lawyers basically thought, environmental, okay, let's print less. And we are all set, right? That was the general approach of our industry to sustainability. Not so sure whether this really is enough, and I'm not so sure whether this works the way I want. Yes, so not truly sure. In 2011, 2012, together with PwC and AIJA, an international organization of young lawyers, I actually conducted the first global survey on CSR in law firms. The result of it was very impressive because, not surprisingly, lawyers thought like, we are doing a lot of pro bono work, and then, hence we have CSR. So we are at the next level. We are all set, right? We're doing a lot of pro bono work traditionally at the core of our business, at the core of our profession, also like in the medicine area, but maybe it's still not enough to be sustainable. I also want to allude that this pro bono element has surfaced a lot more in the Anglo-American context. So when we did that survey, the ratio of responsive, we have a CSR policy, we are doing a lot of pro bono work, was much more predominant in the Anglo-American environment, and the continental European law firms were more shy about it, didn't show it as much, and that is still true. In 2016, there was a survey done of how many hours law firms spend for pro bono work, and it's 65 hours per year per lawyer in the US in the top law firms, and it's turned out to be 15 hours in the law firms in continental Europe, so a bit a lower rate. This may also be due to the fact that in continental Europe we do a lot of pro bono work, but we don't talk about it too much. It's just something we do. So pressure on having a proper CSR strategy in law firms grew over time because law firms are rightfully also seen as enterprises and no longer just as a group of specialists. So things changed, and more law firms, especially global law firms and leading law firms, have CSR strategies. They have them because they have to meet client expectations. Clients want them to have these CSR strategies, and also in order to win in the war for talents. Again, the US firms were much faster in that approach. And again, continental Europe seems to lag a little bit behind. What is much more common in Europe is what I call private social responsibility. So you find many partners and lawyers in law firms who do a lot of work actually in all the sustainability areas, also supporting clients, but predominantly supporting NGOs and doing a lot of good work, but they don't talk about it. So after that very brief introduction in what the lawyers do about CSR, let's talk about us. So what do we do? Because we also want to wake up and not have the feeling, what if a client asks us what we do and we have no response, like you said earlier on. So what would be our response? So actually, Keller Carar exists also for more than 100 years, so the foundation goes back to many more years as well. And somehow we, and Henri Peter said it in the beginning, we share values that bond us. Sometimes we don't know exactly what they are, but we all have become friends at heart and the way we do business, without necessarily defining them. CSR, sustainability, has, to a certain extent, a long, long tradition in this law firm, and with many lawyers. There are tons of sustainable activities in this law firm. It sits in the DNA, so-called. But at the same time, it's somewhat vague, because we don't talk about it and we don't share it. So we just do it. Every one of us just does it. It is natural for us to do it. So when we realized that we don't know too much, the first thing we did, we initiated, let me show the wonderful DNA aside, we initiated an internal survey with more than 50 questions, asking all of our more than 200 lawyers about their activities and about how they deal with sustainability, what their impact is when they do work. The next two slides are just giving you an idea of outcomes. The first of all is going back to the pro bono view, is showing you what pro bono activity is actually being done in the law firm, what the split is in the areas. But what was particularly interesting for us when looking at the results of the survey was that while almost 90% of the participants, so meaning of our lawyers, thought that CSR is truly important for their clients, only 19% ever talked to their clients about CSR. So that was one of the outcomes, also one of the questions that was interesting for us. So with all that information from the survey at hand, we decided to start and also accelerate a number of initiatives internally and to make them more visible. The goal of that is obvious. Share the value that actually and the expertise that sits in the law firm, both for the benefit of ourselves, of our law firm, but also for the benefit of our clients. Because we have tremendous experience in the law firm. I was really impressed, and I think others were as well. So for a kickoff, we had a first, basically we wanted to start like today, to sit all together in one room and share information and share a number of presentations from experts that we have in our law firm about certain topics. I just listed them for you. We did it online due to COVID back then. We had a great participation of more than 100 lawyers in that online meeting, sharing the information that sits in the law firm. A second initiative, and I want to thank especially Thomas, my partner Thomas, Beat, and also Laura von Thiel, who put it together, is the establishing of a so-called toolkit. In that toolkit, we register all the activities of our lawyers, following certain thoughts, a certain systematic. I don't ask you to go into the details of the systematic, but you will find hundreds of entries in that toolkit, and you can go there, click there, know exactly who does what, and can actually access that information much easier. That's an important tool for us to know who has done what, who does what, who knows whom. I give you a brief insight. For example, if you pull for philanthropy, the list is much longer. I just took the top lines, and I don't want to go in detail in that. And maybe one comment on this second slide, or two comments, when you pull for politics, legislation, and deregulation, which buys into your policy-making initiatives. There are very important initiatives that are already running, like the 5 to 12 initiative, giving a prize for deregulation ideas, that's one thing. But also, like especially this year, supporting the Federal Council as experts for free in setting up the regulations around COVID was very important. And you could only do that if you're already an expert before. So you have to serve earlier on. There are a number of other initiatives that started out of this thinking. I don't want to dive too deep into it because it's not about marketing too much. Just the Corona initiatives, I think that was very visible. We were playing an important role in the credit area, in the bankruptcy area, and also with all the virtualization of meetings. And we are still now with the review. Our law firm is reviewing all these COVID credits, and that's in a team of all our sites. More initiatives are events that we do. We are entering into corporations because we believe we are not the best to do it on our own, but rather do it with important other organizations. And there are also research papers in the banking area that are being published that are very important on these topics because of the huge regulation in that field, as you mentioned earlier on. So what we also did for Keller Carr is re-emphasize our value proposition, embedding sustainability and also the support of sustainable entrepreneurship. With our startup desk, we are supporting numerous startups in this field. We mentioned it, we are rethinking, and I may also jump into, I have no vote probably, or not more of a vote than you have, into the B Corp group, rethinking, but I want to mention that we also thought about becoming a cooperative. That could also be a valuable idea, but maybe not buying into sustainability as much as the B Corp exercise would do. For us, it is key that we lead by example. And I just wanted to give a brief insight, and that's maybe more interesting even for the lawyers amongst us, what actually an outside counsel can do in order to support clients in sustainability. I think somehow you thought about it and somehow you mentioned it as well earlier on. So one of the elements is very often we work for general counsel, for in-house counsel, and we can support them in becoming true leaders in sustainability. And just to give you a brief example, I'm in a board of a Swiss-based, Geneva-based, but very US company in the eye care field. And it was truly the general counsel who drove the sustainability initiative and the sustainability report, actually together with me. And lawyers, in-house lawyers can make changes and we can help them a lot in being accelerators in great corporations. I want to draw a note there that UN Global Compact has issued a number of papers supporting this, and it's very interesting. They also have tutorials that you can watch on anti-corruption, etc., human rights. Just wanted to note it. We can further support our clients, and I think that's very much, you mentioned as well, in not only knowing what is legal, but also seeing the upcoming trends, and not only for the legal part strictly, but also what is reasonable and what makes sense by applying our common sense to a large extent, and allow common sense and allow to challenge the way a client would like to take if it's strictly legal or is it responsible. Be an active player in setting up regulations and deregulations also. I think that will be at least as important. And also leverage our risk assessment skills, because we are typical risk assessor. That's what drives very often our advice. So why not leverage it even more, especially in the gap between corporate policy and what is actually legal, because there is a gap. And we have to help the clients maneuver in that gap. Proactively address a number of topics that have been addressed earlier on already. And I just took a little note and said about the rating questions. I felt like at home when you showed that slide, the soup. So we can also help to cook the soup, and I hope that the initiative will be successful to align all these ratings, because that's really key for coming up. We can also support social entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurship. Of course, we can support NGOs, etc. And we also have to, and that's by the way a must, we have to fulfill third-party service provider expectation by doing so. So we have a own purpose. We are driven by the business to fulfill these requirements as well. Now there's one slide left in my hand, and it's a word that's maybe surprising that it was missing up and until now. Casey and diversity and inclusion. I realized when I saw you earlier on, you four, that I'm in a minority. And I'm not addressing the female. I'm from the other side of the Röstigraben. Somehow. No, but to make that short, we care about diversity and inclusion a lot at Kellerhals-Garar. As everyone, but I can truly confirm that. We have a very diverse set of employees and lawyers, and it enriches us every day. We are not all aligned and all the same. We are very different, and that makes us rich and makes us learning every day. On that, we are also supporting organizations that try to help people with special needs, because also ourselves, we have people with special needs. One of these initiatives, I'm very proud that we are able to introduce today as a surprise guest speaker, Mr. Marcel Rösch, who sits amongst us, and he is the leader of the production team of Swisscom, and has a great initiative to share with us. And I would like to ask you to come and share with us, Marcel Rösch, if that's possible, with a great hand of everyone.